Pasadena presents. I'm your host, Mark Breitenberg, Vice President of Innovate Pasadena, and I'm here today with Bill Bogaard, four-term mayor of Pasadena. You served for 16 years. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for inviting me.
I want to start off talking about leadership. I mean, you had a really important role leading the City Council and the City of Pasadena. What were the key skills that you employed as mayor of Pasadena?
As I took office as Pasadena's first directly elected mayor in 1999, the council was coming off a period of time during which its deliberations were tumultuous, and frequently they were unable to reach decisions that had significant support on the council.
Right.
So I had an opportunity, along with three other new colleagues who joined the council at the time, to set a different tone in decision-making at the city council level.
Right.
What I found worked for me was to do a lot of listening and not too much talking.
Right.
I made it a conscious point, to be normally the last council member to vote, the last council member to express a view on a particular issue. That style of deferring to others, listening carefully to them, and then attempting to incorporate as many of the elements of their thinking as possible in the direction that we were going seemed to work.
Right. So it was critical in that particular situation. Do you think that was something you knew immediately when you came in, or did you work that out over time as mayor?
My best self-evaluation in response to your question is that style of collegial decision-making comes more naturally to me than another style of leadership.
Right.
Some leaders succeed, at least they try to succeed in asserting what the outcome ought to be and then looking for people to follow.
Right.
I tended to say, what are the solutions that you have in mind, and tried to work with that.
So it sounds like it's a leadership style that combines your own personality with the situation in which you're leading.
Exactly.
It's not universal for any particular situation, but unique to this one. That makes a lot of sense. Are there things that you learned later on that you wish you'd picked up earlier in terms of leadership?
I would say that the style of listening and deferring some of my own strong views in the debates among council members seemed to work over time. There were times when the outcome of the council's decision-making, although perhaps unanimous, was not as close to what I would have personally done if I were the czar of Pasadena.
Right. Right.
So it's a matter of striking a balance between what works on an ongoing basis, the listening style, and hoping that you can, even so, get things going in the city the way you would do it if you were the sole decision maker.
Right. So that style of leadership you maintained for the full 16 years that you were mayor. It's interesting. What are some of the ingredients of an innovation culture? And I'll preface this by saying to our audience that Bill was mayor when Innovate Pasadena was started, and you were instrumental in supporting those of us who were working on beginning Innovate Pasadena. So Pasadena has become, partly because of Innovate Pasadena and largely because of your leadership, a very vibrant ecosystem for innovation. What are the key ingredients for a city that wants to establish this kind of an ecosystem?
In our case, what comes to mind in response to your question is that the city manager and I had, a year before Innovate Pasadena was talked about, determined that it would be helpful at that stage of history to gather together a group of capable, business-oriented members of the community and ask them, what direction should the city try to move in? And we were lucky to have some very capable persons working on that task force. And the conclusion of the task force was that Pasadena has certain strengths. Arts and culture is one, for example. Historic resources is another source of strength. But a source of strength that is extremely important for the city are the institutions, academic institutions and businesses that are strong in technology. And that was an area of the community which fits broadly in what's going on in the world today,
Right.
in terms of innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and Pasadena's own resources available. So one of the outcomes of that task force was to somehow pull together the persons in Pasadena, the companies in Pasadena that were involved in high tech, and remind them that there is strength in numbers.
Right.
And if they come together and confer and share ideas and let others know what's going on, likely the community and they themselves will benefit from that effort.
Right. So once again, you start the initiative by listening to the community, and it really makes a lot of sense, because when I was around for the founding of Innovate Pasadena, what was already laid in place by, I think, what you did was a community-based effort. So other cities have tried to do this top-down. I think Innovate Pasadena grew up with the community already in place, which was a kind of grassroots campaign, which I think you largely set up. And by the way, the assets are so important for us. We said very, very early on that Innovate Pasadena had a density of wealth, and not monetary wealth, although there's some of that too, but Arts Center, Caltech, JPL, some of the companies that have grown up here. My question is, what would you say to other mayors that want to do a similar thing? I mean, and many cities are. Just down the road, Glendale has initiated something similar to what we did here. What would you say at a roundtable of mayors about how to go about instilling an innovation culture?
I would suggest that they call together a group of leaders in the community, including those who were directly involved in high-tech development and business operations, and make certain that the notion at City Hall is shared by those who are most directly affected.
Right.
And also to start a discussion about how the community can benefit from an increase in that kind of activity and a strengthening of the output and the impact, strengthening or increase in the number of jobs.
Right.
So that there's that kind of knowledgeable foundation upon which to go. And then to find some leadership. Pasadena was fortunate in regard to Innovate Pasadena to have some very energetic and innovative persons, to coin a phrase, who were prepared to roll up their sleeves and add to their busy schedules to draw people together and start holding receptions, start holding conferences, start having activities and discussions about the benefits and the needs of a high-tech economy.
Right. Now, I remember Innovate Pasadena's first event at the former Twin Palms. 600 people showed up, and we had to ask people to leave. That we couldn't accommodate them, which was really a sign that we had a pent-up demand that was there. But I'm wondering too, was there any resistance to this effort that you recall? This is 5 years ago now. In 2013, we started. Were there members of the community in your constant listening that really didn't want us to become a tech innovation center?
I would say not strongly. There are certainly persons in the community who have reservations about new developments that will bring traffic or that will bring congestion of one kind or another. They, of course, have strong voices and should be listened to. But otherwise, I would say it was more indifference than it was opposition that we encountered, that Innovate Pasadena encountered in the early stages.
Right. Another important part of your contribution to Innovate Pasadena is the Leadership Circle, which you co-founded, I think also about 2015. Tell us about the idea behind that.
The idea was to allow persons in the community who take Pasadena very seriously, who in their way are committed to strengthening the economy of the city as well as the city in other ways, but who are not directly involved in high tech. And say, This is an opportunity for you to step forward as a leader of the community, as a person concerned about the future of Pasadena, and learn about what's going on, and help us through your personal contributions to carry on and to expand the activities of Innovate Pasadena.
Right, and it's been a great success. Innovate Pasadena is dependent on the financial help of people in the leadership circle and also companies and organizations that serve as sponsors. And again, thank you for your efforts in doing that. I want to talk a little bit about what you're up to now. You certainly have not slowed down by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, I see you about town more than I did when you were mayor. What are some of the initiatives that you're championing these days?
The Arroyo Seco is the answer to your question.
Yeah.
In early 2017, the council announced a new commitment to the Arroyo Seco to address and understand its needs and to search for ways to meet those needs as we go forward, recognizing the Arroyo Seco for Pasadena has the potential of being as significant as Central Park is to New York City.
Interesting.
And in fact, Central Park is a model for our thinking in that 30 years ago it was ignored and out of sorts. The community, the city said that it didn't have the resources to fix it. And a group of citizens emerged in New York that over the next 30, 35 years have been enormously influential in stabilizing and then improving Central Park. So, in fact, that very nonprofit organization operates under an agreement with the city to manage and operate Central Park and to maintain it. That's done through a city contribution, which would have been spent anyway, and philanthropic contributions and grants.
Bill, let's pause for a moment here, and we'll be back right after this short break.
Great.
Greetings, Bill Nye here, CEO of the Planetary Society, coming to you from sunny Pasadena, California. It might not seem like it at first glance, but this little town has been the birthplace of some of humankind's biggest ideas. Am I right, Cassie? It was here we discovered the ever-expanding universe and our place within it. And here we got up close and personal with our far, far away friends. Yes, like a powerful magnet, this little town in Southern California draws the brightest minds from every corner of the globe. While the city's past made history, its present writes humankind's future. Today, a new wave of brilliant minds carry the torch and with gazes fixed permanently upward, make it their mission to uncover the universe's greatest mysteries. Every day, fueled by a passion for progress, the creations of the curious, the experiments of the fearless, and the pursuits of dreamers come together right here to move us forward and change life as we know it. From NASA JPL to Carnegie Observatories to the Planetary Society to Art Center College of Design to Innovate Pasadena and to Caltech. With that much brain power all in one place, it's only natural that the innovative spirit spills into the air, inspiring all who breathe it in. Want to experience tomorrow for yourself? Come visit this little town cranking out big ideas. It's where great minds meet.
Made a brick and made a stone. You hold my life and everything I've known. We're all the rest within your walls. Glass and mortar windows to your soul.
Welcome back to Innovate Pasadena Presents. I'm your host, Mark Breitenberg, and I'm here with Bill Bogaard, former mayor of Pasadena. Bill, you came to Pasadena in 1970, and I am very curious, and I'm sure much of our audience is, about the difference between the city then and what it's become now and what it might become in the near future. I grew up in Palo Alto before it was a big tech community, before Silicon Valley, and I have a feeling that the Palo Alto that I grew up in was similar to Pasadena when you arrived with Claire in 1970. What was it like then, and what are the key changes that you've seen over the last, 50 years?
It is a dramatically changed situation from 1970 to today. Mm-hmm. In 1970, the business community was focused in the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
There had been studies done about the future of the economy because sales tax revenues were decreasing over time. The approach for providing revitalization to the city was based on redevelopment, mm-hmm. which is, and particularly the tools of eminent domain to acquire the property, clear it of what was there, and mm-hmm. then start with some modern building, right. headquarters construction, and so on. And that's the atmosphere of one of a weakening economy and a commitment to a corporate headquarters philosophy, mm-hmm. where old Pasadena, for example, right. Would be removed, right. and there would be additional headquarters like Parsons was the first step in that strategy, right. and other companies like Jacobs Engineering envisioned moving into a new headquarters building on California Boulevard, right. In a neighborhood that was considered blighted. Right. But what happened over the years was that with the activism of some great dedicated people, a different vision for the city emerged. At the risk of seeming biased, I must say that I consider Pasadena heritage, which my wife Claire was involved as a founder, right. has had the single most identifiable impact on the city in that 50-year period, because at the very beginning, historic preservation was a four-letter word. Blocking development, blocking right. demolition, and new construction was right. considered to be anti-business. Right. And today, of course, we know that the historic preservation ethic pervades the city. We all recognize that Old Pasadena is an enormous benefit as mm-hmm. well as a charming place to be. Sure. Sometimes the crowds get heavy. Yeah. The protection of our city hall, right. Of our conference center, of the Rose Bowl, which is on the National Register, the protection of neighborhoods, those homes, say in historic Highlands, or Bungalow Heaven, mm-hmm. another neighborhood in the city, are treasured right. by their owners, and the activism is designed to preserve that. Right. Then there's the changes in the downtown area with the arrival and the planning for the light rail system, mm-hmm. And a commitment to protect our neighborhoods from intrusive development. The city made decisions to zone the downtown area for mixed use. Mm-hmm. That was a big decision right. when, for this city
When did
and
that
others.
come about?
Oh, it would have been in 1994. Right. When the city adopted zoning policies that allowed dense development in the downtown and on commercial corridors like North Lake, North Fair Oaks, right. And restrictive zoning in the Pasadena neighborhood, so that single-family owners did not have to be concerned that they would find a 6-story apartment building right. next door.
So it's interesting, it does sound like the 70s when you talk about a plan in which you're trying to bring big corporations in, you're going to raise the historical buildings. That does feel like 70s thinking in some ways. But you and your wife Claire and many people in Pasadena were really prescient because now when you talk about attracting tech companies, innovative companies, they're very concerned with quality of life. They're very concerned with the proximity to a great restaurant or a coffee shop. So in many ways, maybe without knowing it at the time, you laid a groundwork for what became the tech revolution in Pasadena, which started, I think, maybe 15, 18 years ago.
I would say that not many people at Pasadena Heritage claim to be prescient, but they do take pride in having recognized values and attributes of the city of Pasadena that should be preserved.
Right.
Nice neighborhoods and nice architecture rather than starting over again.
Yeah, well, pressing it without knowing it, I think, because they turned out to be right. And there have been some great companies that have come here recently in the last 5 to 10 years that I think wouldn't have come if it looked like a big corporate center. So we're all grateful for that work. So we have started a kind of tech innovation revolution here, I think. We talked earlier about some of the key ingredients, having great institutions, having community support, listening to companies. What do you think are the next 5 years will look like on this? I mean, where is the business growth and development for Pasadena going to go in the next 5 years?
I think that Pasadena is on the right track. We have a strong recognition of environmental concerns that make it clear, and it's been clear for a couple of decades, that manufacturing is not in Pasadena's future. So the idea of clean jobs, of green jobs,
Right.
Of high-tech activities, of taking advantage of the brilliant people at Caltech and Art Center and JPL and some of the major companies, global companies that are headquartered here in Pasadena. Continuing to build on that, I think, has a lot going for it, and I think Pasadena will succeed. I think Pasadena will continue to be an arts and culture center.
Right.
It will continue to treasure its architectural heritage and therefore be a fun place to visit. People enjoy coming here as opposed to some other city that maybe has a shorter history and a more modern atmosphere.
Right. Well, I mentioned that I was from Palo Alto, and I also worked up in San Francisco fairly recently. And there's a lot of people, if only because of the cost of housing, which is exorbitant, there's a lot of people from the Bay Area that are thinking about coming south. And we're very excited about that, attracting new entrepreneurs and new companies. But one of the things they do talk about all the time is the quality of life. And in many ways, it feels as much like the Bay Area, like Palo Alto, as it does Los Angeles. So Pasadena has this very unique qualities that are a little bit rare in Southern California, which again is a lot to do with the preservation of the architecture and so on. So Bill, let's add to that last question, the challenges for the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, if you were to advise the mayor, and maybe you do, the current mayor, or future mayors, what would you want to be on their radar? What would you want them to be cognizant of as potential problems for our future?
The principal problem I think that this city faces, along with many other cities in California, is the non-availability of affordable housing.
Yeah.
And San Francisco's current situation, if I understand it, is that housing prices are higher than they've ever been before.
That's right.
To the point where it is truly difficult for ordinary workers to live in the city,
Right.
to take a job and live in the city.
Well, in fact, just as a sidelight, you can receive assistance for low-income housing with an annual salary of $100,000. That's almost a joke, but it's actually true in the Bay Area. But please continue.
Well, Pasadena has to continue working. I think Pasadena's record in regard to housing affordability and dealing with the homeless issue is stronger and than many other cities in the region. But that's clearly a need in order to preserve the rich variety of people, of neighborhoods, of talent in Pasadena. Housing has to be available to people.
Right.
And new people should come to the community and be a part of it.
Right. No, we did a lot of demographic research early on when we were doing the marketing for Innovate Pasadena. It's more diverse than people think. In fact, it's a remarkably diverse community in every way that you measure that. And I think that's something that some people that have an older image of Pasadena don't quite appreciate.
That's true.
Yeah. Bill, thank you so much for your insight, your comments today. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. Remember, stay innovative.